All right, let's pray. Lord, thank you for the fact we can have class today. Thank you for your goodness and mercy to us. Thank you for your safety that you provide us. We pray that you'd strengthen the students physically in the class, that you'd help those also that are watching video, that they might be able to learn the language in which you gave us your glorious revelation in the New Testament. So we ask for your blessing on this class. Help me as I teach and help the students as they learn. And we pray this for Jesus' sake. Amen. All right, let's sing the Greek alphabet song so you can stand up. Dun da dum da dum da dum 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 da dum da 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 da. Okay, ready? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, psi, omega, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, psi, omega. All right, good job. You can take a seat. It's a good way to get going here. Does anybody have any questions from the workbook over the workbook assignments from the chapters 3 and 4? Y'all got it down perfectly, huh? Oh, if you do. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. But if you do, definitely we will answer them. What chapter is it? No? Okay. All right. That's fine. Let's go ahead and read this, at least a sentence or two. Do you want to start? You can read it just for you can read it from your Greek New Testament too. That's fine, because I'm not sure if there's critical text variants here. But so go ahead and read just verses 5 and 6, 1 John 1, 5 and 6. And then you'll do 7 and 8, Tony.
6.
Yeah.
Kai hote estin he Anglia in ake ek oimen ap otu kai an anglemen human hoti hastias pos esti kai Scotia and auto uk estin udemia.
Okay, hold on a second. So I'll read it too. So that's kai haute estin he angelia hein ake ka amen op autu kai anangelamen humin hoti ha theos phos esti kai Scotia en auto uk estin udemia. Which is, that's pretty good. Okay, go ahead and do verse 6. Yeah, right. That's what I said. Yeah.
I'm reading it in here and there's a couple differences.
Yeah. So, if you have your Greek New Testament with
It's
you?
in the lobby.
Oh, yeah, go get it. Yeah, that's fine. Or, I have it up here too.
Okay, well,
So, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Jan Epomen hoti koinonian kamen met atu kai en to skote
Skate.
skate peripat omen swedam methat kai u poi umen tain alethian.
Okay, good. So ean apomen hoti koinonion ekamen metautu, kai ento skate peripatomen pseudometha, kai u poiumen tain alethian. Okay, you want to do verse 7, Tony?
De en to oti perapatomen pos autas estin en to oti koinomion ekomen met
Alelon.
kai ka. It's a rough reading, right?
That's a rough mark, yep. Haima.
Esu Christu tu who you
Huiu.
autu
Katharidze.
Hemas aho pases hamartias.
Okay, not bad. Ean, that was ean de ento photi peripatomen, hos autos estin ento photi, koinonion ekamen met alelon, kai tahaima Jesu Christu tu huiu autu, katharidze hemas, apa pases hamartias. Okay, you can do the next verse too. Ean.
Or is that a diphthong?
Yep. Apomen.
Apomen, hati, hamartian, uk, akamen, heautus, planomen, kai, ha.
Hey.
Okay. Hey, aletheia, uk, estin, en hamen.
All right. That was ean apomen, hoti hamartion, uk ekamen, heautus planomen, kai he aletheia, uk estin en hamen. All right, let's say verses 9 and 10. What, was there, do you have a question?
No, I was just saying in English.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are pretty familiar ones in English. Oh, we'll be familiar in Greek too, hopefully soon. Okay, let's say verses 9 and 10 together here. Ean hamalagomen tas hamartias hemon pistos esti kai dikaios hina aphe hemin tas hamartias kai katharise hemas apa pases adikias ean apomen hoti uk hemartekamen pseustain poiumen auton kai halagos autu uk estin en Hamen. All right. Agathos means good. All right. In verse 9 here, what is this little tiny letter underneath the eta? What is that? Iota subscript. Good. How does that change the pronunciation of the eta? Yeah, it doesn't really. Yeah. I mean, 8 is already long. Too good? Good.
What is it there for?
What is it there for? The iota subscripts are part of the word, and so they can influence meaning. Like it can mean something different if it has one, it doesn't. So, and by going underneath, it teaches us humility. So, yeah, allegorical interpretation of the iota subscript, right? Kabbalah? Yeah, we're not learning Kabbalah here. Yeah, right. All right. What is the name of the accent on hamartios here?
The first one? Oh,
There's only one accent. The first thing is a rough breath mark, which means it has a H sound. Ha.
move your cursor a little bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Right there. Over the iota. What's that accent called?
It is cute.
Yeah. Isn't it? Oh.
It's a cute one.
Oh. See, that's why it's going up, because it's cute. It's an acute accent. What is the accent over chi? It's a grave. It's going down to the grave. And how about the one over the omega? Circumflex. Yep. Good. All right. We're going to go to, if you thought of any questions, if you think of any questions you have on the homework, we're definitely happy to answer them. We're going to get in chapter 5 here. And then we're going to take a break. Then we'll do chapter 6. Chapter 6 is kind of a longer one. Mounce has some nice slides, and so I am very happy to use the slides that he...
You didn't make these?
No, I did not make these. I downloaded them, but there's no need to reinvent the wheel if somebody else has already... I mean, it'd be kind of a late to reinvent it anyway, because we've been using it for a long time. So, okay. So, chapter 5. So, and you can look along the book. Feel free to take notes. There are, good margins in here. Writing in books is a good thing, at least if you own the book, right? Okay. So we're learning nouns first before verbs, and for many people, the greatest initial obstacle many people had to learning Greek is not knowing English grammar well. Especially if Mounce is in English and they speak Chinese, then they really couldn't read it because they wouldn't know English at all. But even if they know English as their first language, we don't today in the state indoctrination, I mean the educational system, oftentimes people don't learn grammar. They learn socialism, right? But they don't learn grammar. And so that doesn't help you too much when if you need to learn another language. So we're going to review a little bit of English grammar here because that is essential for learning Greek. Now, if English grammar makes your eyes kind of glaze over and you're like, you want to collapse, I don't necessarily blame you, but it will help you remember the goal. The goal is we're going to be knowing God's word better by reading it in the original language in Greek. And so this is an important step for us to get there. And so that can keep you from having your eyes glaze over too much, hopefully. So that's just to mention that. And so the first thing here that we're going to be talking about is an inflection. An inflection means words can change their form. Okay, words can change their form based upon their function and on their meaning. Okay, So, for example, English is not nearly as inflected of a language as Greek. Words don't change their form nearly as much, but there are changes in English word meanings based upon function. For example, if I was speaking about my wife, I wouldn't say, I love she, unless I really needed to improve my English grammar. What would I say instead of I love she? I love her. But I would say she loves me with a pronoun, because she is a subjective form of the pronoun. It's used when it's the subject. But I would say I love her because her is the objective form of the pronoun. Her is the object of, is the direct object of the verb to love. So we use in English a different form for the doer of the action, the subject, and for the direct object, the direct object being the thing directly affected by the action of the verb. Another example, and there's the examples up here. Her is my daughter. You wouldn't say that. You would say she is my daughter. You wouldn't say I love she. You'd say I love her. So we have that going on. That takes place in Greek as well. So there's different words look differently based upon what they're doing in the sentence. And most words in Greek inflect differently in the singular and the plural. In English, we do something like that as well. If we said King David gave gifts with an S on it to Solomon versus King David gave a gift to Solomon. So there, the word gift has a different form of its singular or plural. Add an S to it, right? Adding an S is often a way in English you could say inflect the word to reflect singular versus plural. And similarly, you can think about the word child. What do you do to make the word child plural? I have another one? Yeah, children. Children, you add an R-E-N on it, because maybe children like to run around, I don't know. But there you can see there's a difference there in English. Instead of adding an S, we don't say childs, not childs, right? You add an R-E-N to it. So there's another way where those are two different systems of inflection in English, where we differentiate singular and plural. So function is a way that words can be differentiated in English. All right. Number, singular or plural. So here, this example on the board. This man stayed, but those men left. So man versus men. Different form of the word for singular and plural. In English, the pronoun is one of the most inflected words that still has an inflection. Many other words don't. So for example, the word teacher, whether it's the subject or the direct object, it still actually was the same. The teacher gave me an A on the pop quiz. Okay. That was when he was correcting my alpha, right? The actual grade on the pop quiz wasn't an A, but he gave me an A because I wrote that and it meant something else. But no, the teacher there would be the subject, okay, or the direct object. I gave the teacher, something, my paper. Okay, so that is a word that's not inflected in English. Greek is a highly inflected language, as we said. So the words change, and we're in chapter 5. Words change their meaning or the form of the word based upon what they're doing in a sentence. In Greek, they do that a lot. So inflection means that a word changes its form. In Greek, inflection, German is also a highly inflected language as well, but we're not learning German because God didn't write the Bible in German. Luther wrote it in German, and the Waldensians did before Luther. But words in Greek also change their form based upon their meaning. So in English, we don't really inflect due to meaning. So if you said the boxer punched the boxer, okay, they're both the subject. The boxer is the same form as the boxer who got the punch. the boxer punch. Now, one of them might be a little more black and blue at the end of the sentence, but the form of the word is the same. Okay, they both have the same form, but that's different than the way Greek did it. In Greek, you would have a different form of the word for the subject, the boxer doing the punching, and the object, the boxer who got punched. So that is a difference there. So that's what an inflection is. It's the way a word changes its form. We also have, this is 5.3 on page 21. That was 5.2. Now we're on 5.3 here. Words perform different functions in a sentence, and those different functions are called cases. In English, there are 3 cases. There's a subjective case for words that are the subject. There is the objective case for words that are direct objects of verbs. And there's the possessive case for where you are showing that you own something, the possession. So a word can be a subject, can be a direct object. These different functions in a sentence get different cases. So the subject is the word doing the action of a verb. All right. So here we have the sentence, Kirsten went to college. What's the subject of that sentence? Kirsten. The dog ate my shoe. What's the subject of that sentence? The dog. Okay. So that is, the subject is doing the action. Eating the shoe, going to college. Those are what subjects do. Now, you can see in these 2 sentences on the board that many verbs perform actions. Eating a shoe, going to class, whatever. The dog ate my shoe. That's an active verb. Some verbs express states. Like, for example, the verb to be is the most common stative verb. I am here. That's not an action necessarily. You're just existing. You're in a state of being here. So we're not getting into verbs too much. Most of the illustrations we're going to use are going to be employing active verbs until we learn stative verbs later in the course. So we're going to be looking at active verbs here. How do you identify a subject in a sentence in English?
Who or what?
Oh yeah, look at that. It says there, yeah. Who or what? Subject typically answers the question who or what. Who went to college? Kirsten went to college. What ate my shoe? The dog. Okay? So the subject is typically identified by who or what. And in English, where does the subject typically go? Right before, it goes before the verb. Yeah, it goes before the verb. So that's what subjects tend to do in English. They go right before the verb, and they answer the question who or what. So that's the subjective case. So we also have the possessive case. This is the form a word takes to show ownership, show possession. And English has several ways to show possession. One way is to use the of construction. The reputation of the teacher is good. So this is a reputation that belongs to the teacher. The teacher possesses this reputation. Another way is to use the apostrophe S construction. The teacher's reputation is good. So here the reputation again belongs to the teacher, but we're saying it with an apostrophe S. And a third way is to use the possessive form of the pronoun, his. So his books are easy to understand. So they're the books. His is telling you who owns the books. They're his books. So that's the possessive case. And Greek, of course, has a possessive way to express possession as well. So we have the subjective case, the possessive case, and then we also have the objective case. This is the direct object. The direct object is the object that directly receives the action of the verb. So I love my wife. There, the wife is the direct object. That's who receives the action of the loving. Hayden earned an A for the test. So what Hayden earned was an A. So that is the object of the verb earned. The pastor helped him. The one who was helped, him, is the direct object of the verb helped. So in English, the direct object receives the action of the verb, and it usually follows the verb, and it answers the question what or whom. So Hayden earned what? Well, he earned an A. The pastor helped whom? The pastor helped him. So that's the objective case. Any comments, questions on the three cases here? Okay. In Greek, in inflection, words can be singular or plural, but they also have gender. This is, we talked about number a little bit. Most students like that student there. In English, we differentiate singular and plural often by putting an S on it. Students, like that student, singular. Okay. We also have gender in English, masculine, feminine, and neuter. And you can't just identify with whatever you want. Masculine, feminine, and neuter. So those are most obvious in English with pronouns. He gave it to her. In that sentence, what is the masculine? He. What's the feminine? And what's the neuter? Yeah, sure. So it's most common in pronouns, but we also have it with a few nouns. Could I get a music stand from somewhere? Thanks. We also have it with a few nouns. So for example, actor and actress. Which one is what's the difference in the gender there? Actor's masculine, actress is feminine. Prince, princess, masculine and feminine. Okay, so there we have a different form of the word for masculine or feminine. But most words don't. Mango, car. So most words don't have differentiation in gender. But in Greek you have a lot. It's much more significant of a factor. It's not just for pronouns, something like that. So Greek has a lot of things. But we can see gender affects inflection. The English pronoun has a different form depending on whether it's masculine or feminine, right? If it's masculine, you say him, his, or feminine, you say her, whatever. So different form in English. Same thing in Greek, different form of the word depending on masculine or feminine. Now, we need to talk about natural gender. It's probably discriminatory to talk about natural gender, right? But natural gender versus grammatical gender, okay? If you're talking about a person, if you refer back to me, you would say he. If you refer to my wife, you'd say she. You refer to a book, you would say it. This is natural gender. Natural gender means the gender of the pronoun reflects the gender of the antecedent. Okay, so I'm man, so therefore the pronoun is masculine for me, while if for a lady it would be feminine, and so on. So that's natural gender. It's reflecting. You might say it's reflecting, kind of reality here. So in Greek, if you had a pronoun that referred to Abraham, what gender would it be? It'd be masculine. Okay. How about to marry? Feminine. Yeah. And so there's a few Greek words where there's a natural gender. So for example, the Greek word adelphos. Does anybody know what adelphos means? If you don't, it's all right. It's the Greek word for brother. Okay. And if you say adelphos, that's masculine. If you have a sister in Christ, it'd be adelphe. So there's a different inflection for the natural gender. For the man, it's adelphos, the lady, it's adelphe. But for the most part, Greek does not follow natural gender, but grammatical gender. In other words, different words have a gender, but it doesn't necessarily reflect something about reality. So for example, on the slide here, the word sin, hamartia, is feminine, and sinner, hamartolos, is masculine. It doesn't mean that somehow sins are ladies and sinners are men. It's just the gender of the word. One is feminine, one's masculine. Grammatical gender. Doesn't tell you, it's not natural gender. Or the word metanoia, repentance, is feminine, but there's nothing inherently female about repenting. Or the word kingdom, basileia, kingdom. That should be masculine, right? It's a feminine in Greek. Does that mean that something about queens ruling or something? No, it's just the word is feminine. The word child in Greek is neuter, teknon. That doesn't mean children aren't masculine or feminine. It just is a neuter word. Similarly, like the word pneuma. Pneuma, the word spirit in Greek, used for the Holy Spirit, is a neuter word. That doesn't somehow mean that the Holy Spirit isn't the third member of the Godhead, isn't the third person of the Trinity. It just is the fact that all words ending with ma in Greek are neuter, regardless of what they mean. If it ends in ma, it's neuter in Greek. That's it. Grammatical gender. So when you have members of the Watchtower Society, if they try to get some mileage out of pneuma being neuter, it's not, the tank doesn't have any gas. Okay? All words ending in ma are neuter, so that's why it's neuter. Any more than if we have the word child used for the Lord Jesus, that means that he wasn't a man, right? It means he was a neuter. He was a thing. He's not a person. Jesus wasn't a person. He was called a child, so that's neuter. Something like that. Not a good argument. So the point is that natural gender is not used for the vast majority of words in Greek. The vast majority simply have grammatical gender. Each word has a gender, and it just is something grammatical. It affects the form of the word, not the meaning of the word. Any questions about that? Grammatical gender, natural gender? Okay. We have the word declension here. This isn't a word that's used in English grammar that often, but a declension is a pattern of inflection. And what was an inflection? How the word changes its form. So the word changes its form, that's an inflection. And a declension is a pattern of inflection. It's the way words change their form. So for example, in English, you could, when you add s to a word to make a plural, book to books, you could say that would be a declension. In English, if you wrote the forms of the word book out, if you wrote it in singular, it would be book. If you wrote it in plural, it would have an s. It changes its form. It declines differently. It's a different declension. It's in the plural versus the singular. Okay, woman to woman, singular and plural there. When you make a plural, you change that letter in the middle. Sometimes child to children. Okay, there the word, when you make plural, it has a different form. Other words don't change anything. Moose. How many is that? Could be 1, could be 25. Still moose. Now it's become meese. 1 moose, 2 meese, right? Mooses. No, it's still moose if you have a lot of them. Okay? So that's about as comparable as you can get to a Greek declension. We're going to see that many words in Greek follow one pattern, many others follow a second pattern, many others follow a third pattern. So there's certain patterns that the words follow, and those patterns are called declensions. And for nouns, there are 3 declensions we're going to be learning in chapter 6 here. The declensional pattern is simply a matter of form, not of meaning. So let's say that instead in English of saying children, the correct way to say the plural was childs. You put an S on it instead of making it REN. It wouldn't change the meaning. If you had a group of kids, they would still be, whether you called it childs or whether you called it children, you'd be referring to exactly the same thing. You're just grammatically saying it differently. Okay? Or let's say the plural of the word goose was gooses instead of geese. Okay? There would still be a bunch of these birds there, right? It wouldn't change what you meant. It would just be a different way of saying it. Okay? So nothing in the real world about the animals would have changed. The meaning would be exactly the same. So the pattern of declension doesn't affect the meaning. It just affects the form. In Greek, just like in English. I kind of like the word gooses. Maybe I can kind of get that in. If enough people start to use it, it could become the form. So, but don't write that in like an English paper or something, right? Unless it's like a novel about little children who are learning English or something. Okay, well, let's talk about parts of speech here. Parts of speech, and here we're talking about English parts of speech which pertain to the English noun system because, again, as mentioned at the beginning, one of the big difficulties many people have in learning Greek is they don't know no English. Okay, they ain't got no good grasp of English, and so therefore that can hurt them learning Greek. I remember actually I debated this preacher in a Campbellite believer's baptism for salvation a number of years ago, and it was good. They recorded the debate, but it was at their church building, and he was talking about something in Greek, and I don't remember exactly what the situation, but it's something in Greek we were talking about, and he said, I think I asked him whether he could read the Greek alphabet even, and he said, I don't know Greek, but I know English pretty good. He didn't know English pretty well. He knew English pretty good. So that was interesting. But anyway, so knowing English well, it actually, it's a significant thing. So English parts of speech. We have some examples here, 5.8 through 5.13. So there's a noun. What is a noun? A noun refers to someone or something. Bill threw his black book at the strange person. So, I guess he didn't have a taser or something. So he just threw his book at him. In that sentence, the words Bill, black, book, person, those are all nouns. Okay, they refer to someone or something. What is black? The black book. I mean adjective, yeah. Did I say it was a noun? I don't think I did. Did I? I did? Oh, I'm sorry. Black is an adjective. Yeah, sorry. I didn't, yeah. Black is not a noun. Black is an adjective. An adjective. What is an adjective? An adjective modifies a noun or adjective. The dark brown Bible costs too much. Dark is an adjective modifying another adjective, brown. Dark brown tells you the type of brown. Brown is an adjective modifying what? Bible. Okay? So an adjective modifies a noun or another adjective. A preposition is a word that shows a relationship between two other words. And prepositions are usually little words, both in Greek and in English. Think of a rabbit in a rabbit hole. So you have a rabbit, and it's, oh, there goes the letter O. Joy, think of the letter O. So this is the rabbit hole, okay? Came down right at the right time. The rabbit could be in the rabbit hole, okay? It could go into the hole. It could come out of the hole. It could jump over the hole. All those words are prepositions. They all, in this situation, they all denote a spatial relationship between the rabbit and the hole. Prepositions can also denote temporal relationships. We study after playing basketball. Or maybe we play basketball after we study, would be better. But, so prepositions can denote spatial relationships. They can denote temporal relationships. If you think of those words, the rabbit in the hole, over, in, out, stuff like that, around, go around the hole. Those are, I guess I don't know, it might fall down again. I'll just put the O over there. So that's good timing though, providential, right? So That's a preposition. A preposition shows a relationship between two other words. There, those prepositions were all showing the relationship between the rabbit and the hole. You know, where the rabbit was. Was it in it? Was it on top of it? Was it going around it? Was it over it? So those words all show the relationship between the rabbit and the hole. Or with temporal, we study after playing basketball. The preposition after shows the relationship between the study and the other activity, playing basketball. So those are prepositions. We also have the article. In Greek, we have in English, we have a definite article and an indefinite article. What is the definite article in Greek? English. What is the definite article in English? The. What's the indefinite article in English? A or and. Yeah, good. So we have a definite article and an indefinite article in English. And the definite article adds specificity. This is the book I was looking for, this specific one, versus I'm looking for a book. We don't know which book it is, something like that. Indefinite articles are broad and vague. Definite article adds specificity. Greek has no explicit indefinite article. There's ways to express the same idea in Greek, but there's no specific indefinite article in Greek. There's only the article. You can refer to the article as the definite article, but it's probably better just to refer to the Greek article as the article, because there is no indefinite article. There's just the article. And the Greek does not always use the article the way we do in English. There's a lot of overlap, but it's not always the same. Imagine again if you're talking to a member of the Watchtower Society, and if he says the Greek of John 1:1 says the word was a God. It doesn't say he was God, it says the word was a God. You could say, well, that's very interesting. Did you know there's no indefinite article in Greek? And he probably doesn't if he says that. There's no indefinite article in Greek. There's just the article or the definite article. We also have sentences can be broken into parts. It has a subject part. This is 5:14 through 16 here, page 26. We're not studying verbs until chapter 15. We're concentrating on nouns here and learning them well, but we need to know a little bit about, verbs are obviously examples and sentences. There are going to be verbs in there. So a sentence has a subject part and a predicate part. The subject part of the sentence is the specific subject of the verb and all the modifiers of the subject of the verb. The predicate part is the verb and all the modifiers of the verb. All right? So, and we're going to get into more detail in Greek verbs later, of course. But the Greek verbal system, we're going to say just a small bit about it now, because if we didn't say anything at all about verbs until chapter 15, you couldn't have as nice, the exercises with verses from the Bible and so on, you couldn't have nearly as nice examples in your workbook as if at least you know a little bit about verbs. So we're going to learn a lot more about verbs later, but we're saying a little bit about them now. So it also will make it so chapter 15 won't be completely new and completely different. So a Greek verb has a stem. The stem is the part that expresses the actual meaning of the verb. So if you have, I don't know where that little thing is to turn this on or off. Oh well. You see it? Oh, it's over there. Okay, good. So let's say you have agape. All right, word for love here. Agape. The stem is, this is a noun, not a verb. So let's say you have agapao. All right, agapao. That's a verb, I love. This means I love, okay? The actual stem is the part that expresses the meaning. That's the agap. So the agap is the part that tells you this is love, not hate or build or whatever. And then at the end of the verb, there are suffixes called personal endings. And so the personal ending tells you the person and number. So if you have agape, here's the stem, tells you means love. And then the A at the end tells you this means he. So he loves, tells you it's third person singular. While agapao, or the way it actually ends up coming out in a sentence might be agapo. This would actually mean I love. So there, that ending, the personal ending indicates the person and number. So there's a stem, and then there's an ending expressing person and number. Agapo, I love. Agapamen is we love. So stem and a personal ending. There are 3 persons, grammatical persons in Greek. And in English, it's kind of the same thing. How would you, what's first person singular and plural? I, we. So first person is I and we. Okay? So I and we is first person. I'm going to put this back up. Second person. What's second person? You. You, or you could say y'all. Okay, you or y'all is second person, as singular and plural. And third person is he, she, it. Basically everything that's not first person. So the first person is the one who speaks. I speak, we speak. Second person is one spoken to. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to y'all. Okay? Third person is that which is spoken about. I'm speaking to you about Greek language, or I'm speaking to you about the book or whatever. Anything not first, second person. So that's persons in Greek. And the reason we're saying you versus y'all is there's actually in Greek a different form of the pronoun for second person singular and second person plural. And actually in the authorized version in English, there's a difference as well. Does anybody know what the difference is? In your King James Bible, what's the difference between second person singular and second person plural?
Singular is th and plural is...
So second, we said the singular is th, thee, thou, thy, and the plural as ye, you, or ye. Good. And so that's actually a useful distinction even in the English Bible, and it's unfortunate that that's lost in modern versions. But there are 3 grammatical persons in Greek and English: I or we, first person singular plural, you or y'all, and the King James has thee, thou, thy. Just so that you know, since we're talking about this, so you know the difference here. Thee, thou, thy is second person singular. You or ye is second person plural. Thee, thou, and thine or thy are early modern English second person singular pronouns. And they were put in the King James because it's more accurate to have it that way. If you read the preface, you actually don't see those pronouns in the preface, so it wasn't just they wanted to be archaic or something. It was actually an accuracy thing. And just so you know, thou is the subject form, thee is the object form, and thy or thine is the possessive form. Ye was the subject form of the second person plural, and you was the object form. when you're doing your translations, if you can kind of have different options. I think you should express in some way the difference between the Greek second person singular and second person plural. If you want to say, you in lowercase for singular and you in all caps for the plural, that would be fine. If you want to do what the King James does and use thee, thou, thy for the singular and ye and you for the plural, that'd be fine too. All right? But I would pick something, kind of decide, and just kind of stick to it, because that way you're representing the difference in English instead of just saying you for both singular and plural. So if you're going to do what the King James does, which is certainly fine, you should know the difference between thee, thou, and being subject. Thee is the object and thy, thine is the possessive. And ye being the subject and you is the object, just so you actually do the early modern English correctly if you're going to do it that way. Again, you don't have to do it that way. You can just put, you, all caps, or you could even write sing after each time and PL after it, but that gets kind of, you're adding all this extra stuff each time. Yeah?
Is your the possessive for plural?
Your,
Possessive.
yeah, your book, yeah, I think so, yeah. It's a good question. Eventually, after the early modern English period, you became used for the subject and object, singular and plural. And he, she, there's everything else. So just mention this because y'all ought to know this is what's going on in the King James. So, okay. Just wanted to mention that since we're talking about those pronouns there. Back to this one here. We mentioned verbs have different endings for the singular and plural. In Greek, there's usually an expressed subject. So for example, if you have the sentence, the disciples said, we're going to go preach the gospel, something like that. The word disciples as the subject in Greek would be the subject and the verb would be said. So if you had a sentence like that in Greek, you'd have the word disciple and then you'd have the verb said. But the subject in many sentences can be simply expressed by the suffix or ending of the verb. It can be an unexpressed subject. Greek does not need to have a specific word expressing the subject in certain sentences because the personal ending tells you whether it's first, second, or third person, singular, or plural. So for example, the sentence here, su graphes. Graphes is the verb to write. Graph is the stem. That ace ending tells you it's second person singular. So thou writest. You singular write. You could just say, if you just say graphes on its own, graphes on its own, because tells you this is thou writest. Okay? You singular write because of the ending. Well, if you just said write in English, you don't know what it is. It could be he, she, it, you, whatever. If you said su graphes, su is the second person pronoun. Su graphes also means you write, but here you are expressing the subject. Su, you, graphes, thou writest. Okay? You write, singular. So both those sentences would mean the same thing. Su graphes and graphes are expressing the same meaning. Now, su, if you express the subject, it might be a little more emphatic. You write. Okay, maybe because you're specifically taking the time to put that in there. But they both would have the same meaning. So some sentences in Greek, the subject can be unexpressed because the personal ending tells you. In the workbook, because you're not learning verbs until chapter 15, verbs are translated till you get to chapter 15 because you don't know them yet. Okay, very reasonable. But Mounce in the workbook doesn't tell you the gender of the verb because he wants you to be able to see, look at the nouns, different things. It's more beneficial to you as a student if he doesn't tell you that. And so if there's a translated verb in the workbook, he might just say he slash she slash it, thinks or writes or does or whatever is in the workbook. And so what he's doing, if he says he, she, it, hopes, thinks, he's simply telling you that the verb is third person singular by saying he, she, it. That means it's third person singular. So if it was second person, he'd say you, or first person, he'd say I. All right? So the verbs are translated, but then he also doesn't give you the gender. All right? In summary, this chapter was about English grammar because you should have paid attention in school and learn your English grammar better. Okay? So, because knowing English grammar actually is, if you don't know these fundamental things about the nouns, it will hurt you when understanding Greek grammar. So you say, that's why I thought we were learning Greek. We are learning Greek. But knowing this English grammar is very helpful for you knowing Greek grammar. That's why we're talking about it. Okay? So, to summarize what we've covered here, inflection means a word can change its form based on its function in the sentence. Based on its case, whether it's subjective, objective, or possessive. Based upon its meaning, its number. Is it singular, is it plural? Its gender, is it masculine or feminine or neuter? So it can inflect. Its form of the word changes. We saw there are 3 English cases. There's a subjective case, the form where it's the subject of the verb, doing the action. There's the objective case. The word is a direct object, receiving the action. There's the possessive case form, when it indicates possession, apostrophe S, stuff like that. And we saw that words can inflect based on number and gender. They do it a little bit in English, sometimes, and they do it a lot in Greek. And we distinguish between natural gender and grammatical gender. Natural gender is, where it reflects something in the real world. Adelphos, adelphe. It's a brother versus a sister. Grammatical gender just means the word has different forms, but doesn't mean anything. Sin versus sinner. One is feminine, one is masculine. Doesn't tell you anything about whether ladies or men sin more or something like that. We also saw declensions. Declensions are inflectional patterns based on case. Okay, based on the case, there's patterns that are followed. And we also reviewed different parts of speech that relate to the noun system. We saw that nouns stand for someone or something. Adjectives modify nouns or other adjectives. Prepositions indicate a relationship, the rabbit in the hole, okay, or over the hole, or coming out of the hole, or whatever he's doing. We saw there's articles. There's in English, there's a definite, indefinite article. Greek, there's just an article. And then we saw that sentences can be divided into subject and predicate halves. The subject half is the specific subject of the verb and all the words that modify the subject. The predicate part is the verb and all the words that modify that part of the verb. And then we touched on some basic things about Greek verbs. We saw that the ending of the Greek verb tells you the person and number, while the stem is the actual part that gives you the meaning. The Greek verbs can have a suffix that indicates the person, first, second, and third, and the number, singular or plural. Greek verbs can have an expressed subject or an unexpressed subject. You don't need to necessarily say it because it's in the ending. And we also mentioned that in the workbook, Mounce will translate the verbs until chapter 15. But for third-person verbs, he'll just say he, she, it, so that you can figure out the right gender from the context of the sentence. Chapter 5 has no vocabulary to learn. Making sure you know your English grammar pretty good is going to be enough work for chapter 5. And this will help you as we get into chapter 6. Any comments, questions about chapter 5? What is it?
Goodly.
You're going to know it goodly? Yeah, right. All right. We'll take a break then, and then we'll start chapter 6. All right, so we're going to talk about chapter 6 now. And by the way, for people who, if you are watching this on video right now, it's fine to review chapter 5, like in class, just because of the way that we're doing it here. We're going over the same day, the multiple chapters. But it's fine if you're watching this video, even if you all in class want to review it, you can learn chapter 5 and whatever and make sure you have that down and then go to chapter 6. That's okay. We're, of course, going over them both now. Chapter 6 is the longest chapter in the book, but at least there's not much to memorize. Okay? But chapter 6 is the longest chapter in the book. So, just to mention that. To kind of encourage you a little bit before we get into chapter 6, the exegetical insight on page 27 mentions the nominative case. We're going to learn the nominative and accusative cases and the article, the Greek article. Okay. Oops. The nominative case is the case the subject is in. When the subject has the verb is, or a few other verbs, an accusative verb, which is like an equal sign, then instead of calling the part after the verb the direct object, it's called the predicate nominative. So John is a man. In that sentence, John is the subject, man is the predicate nominative. In English, the subject and predicate nominative are usually distinguished by word order. The subject comes first, but in Greek it's not that way. Greek is much more flexible because it's a more inflected language, so you can put words where you want to a bit more. So in Greek, for example, if you have a sentence and one word has the article and the other one doesn't in a subject and predicate nominative construction, the one with the article is the subject. And generally in Greek, if a word is thrown before, if the predicate nominative is before the verb instead of after, often there's something with emphasis there. So for example, in John 1:1c, the Greek you have there in the book says kai theos ein halagos. And those words are kai is and, theos is God, ein is the word was, ha is the, and logos is word. Now in that sentence, we know that the word logos, word is the subject because it has the article. So you don't translate and God was the word, you translate and the word was God. Because logos is the subject because it has the article. So why was theos put first? And why does theos lack the article? And there's a bigger discussion of this, which in second year Greek, which obviously we're not at that point yet. But the position at the front emphasizes essence or quality. So it's saying that the word has the quality of being true God. That's what's actually being emphasized there. So by not having the article, it's not, if it had had the article, it would have been saying there's an exact equal sign between theos, who in this verse is the Father, and the logos, the Son. So if it had said kai ha theos ein ha logos, that would have been saying that Jesus Christ is the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which would be false. It would be Sabellianism. If John had wanted to say that the Word was some kind of secondary divinity, some kind of polytheistic thing, there's a bigger, stronger God and then a lesser God, then theos would have been after the verb. It would have been kai ha logos ein theos. That would have been the way you could have said the Word was a God, some kind of polytheistic situation. By saying theos ein ha logos, he's saying that the Son, the logos, has the quality of being true God, just as much as the Father is God. But without saying that the logos is the Father. So, kai ha logos ein ha theos would have been the heresy of Sabellianism. The Son, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are the same person. Kai ha logos ein theos would have been the heresy of Arianism. The Word is some kind of secondary deity. But kai theos ein ha logos, the Word has the quality of being the true God. That's the truth, orthodoxy, Trinitarianism. So, little exegetical insight from nominative cases in the article. So, that's a blessing. If you didn't quite catch all that, you can read that over, read it over a little more carefully. If you really want to get into it, you can buy Wallace's Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. Of course, if Christ doesn't come back, you'll want to take second year Greek. And then you can see the more detailed discussion. But you probably aren't at the level where you catch it all yet. So, it actually, while that's definitely what John 1:1 is saying, if I'm actually speaking to an anti-Trinitarian person, like a Watchtower Society person, I'm probably not going to make John 1 my first thing, because even though that's exactly what it's saying, you're definitely right about that, he's not going to believe you. He's going to believe his cult. So I'd rather use something where it's not like where they'd have to learn Greek to actually know that they're wrong. The people who actually translated it wrong in the Watchtower Society Bible are going to be very accountable to God. Well, they're dead, so they already are very accountable to God for what they did. I think they're dead by now. So, anyway, well, actually, we don't know. We don't know who the translated. Well, yeah, that's a whole other discussion. Okay, overview of chapter 6. You can see the professor there. He's very excited. He's leaping for joy at the overview. So, we're going to learn to identify whether a noun is first or second declension. We're going to learn two cases. The nominative case, which is used when the noun is a subject, and the accusative, when the noun is the direct object. We're going to learn the forms of the word the, and how they agree with the noun they're modifying. We're going to learn 2 hints for effective translation, and the first 3 of 8 noun rules. So, in the introduction, he mentions this is by far the longest chapter in the text. Now, that might seem bad, but he wants to make sure that since we're learning some important ideas for the first time, he wants to make sure they're covered adequately. And most of it is grammar, not memory work, so there isn't that much to memorize. The chapters in Mounce here are laid out consistently. Each one starts with an exegetical insight, which illustrates some point you're going to learn in the chapter. Then there's an overview of what you're going to learn, a discussion of relevant English grammar, then the Greek grammar, a summary of the entire discussion, vocabulary. Sometimes there's advanced information in a section on exegesis, and on many chapters there's a halftime review. That's how all the chapters get laid out. Mounce is very well laid out. He does a really good job organizing. It's a very well put together grammar. All the English grammar in this chapter has been covered in chapter 5, which kind of makes sense because all of chapter 5 was basically English grammar. There's actually a book you can buy called, it's like, I think Zondervan publishes it. It's like English Grammar for Students of Greek. So, oftentimes after a few years of Greek, after like second year Greek, students know Greek grammar better than English grammar. So, okay. Greek noun, 6.3 here. Now, as we're covering this, we're not learning this at this point to memorize these endings at this point. But what we're doing here is we're just seeing how inflection works. So we're learning about case endings here. All right. A case ending is a suffix added to a Greek noun. So for example, in apostolos, here on the board, apostolos, the sigma at the end indicates the presence of the subjective case. So that's how you would say the word apostle. If it's the subject of the verb, you say apostolos. If it was the apostle performed a miracle, there the apostle would be the subject, it would be apostolos. On the other hand, if it were the direct object, Christ sent the apostles to preach, then it would be apostolon with a nu at the end. So there's a different form of the word for the subject and the object. And the stem is apostola without the sigma, without the ending on there. So Greek uses case endings, not word order, as we've said already. So word order can be a lot more flexible in Greek than in English. And therefore learning the case endings is essential. If you don't know the case endings, you won't know whether it's a subject or a direct object or whatever it is. So you need to know the case endings. That's essential. It's not the word order. What is a stem? The stem is the most fundamental form of the word, which carries its meaning. So for example, if you have the word logos, the stem is loga. that asterisk on the slide before the loga, that's how you specify that this is a stem. Okay? So stem is loga, and logos has the sigma ending on there. After the stem, then you go to declensions, patterns of inflection. So for example, the book to the books thing. Okay, the inflection changes the plural in English by adding an S. Child, the children we mentioned. In English, you add the REN and it makes it plural. Okay? In Greek, singular or plural of the word is indicated by the different case endings. So loga, that stem, is going to have a different ending on it if it's singular, different ending on it if it's plural. And the gender is also indicated by the form of the word as well. Now, what declension the word is does not influence the meaning, but only the form. All right? There's 3 declensions which we're going to talk about just in a second, but that's meaning, not form. We're kind of covering both 6.3 and 6.7 kind of at the same time right now. But, there are patterns of declension are called inflections. So the first declension, the first pattern of how words are inflected, how their forms change, the first declension words end in alpha or eta, like hora here and graphe, and words that end in the alpha or eta follow the same pattern. They decline the same way. They follow the same declensional pattern if they end in an alpha or eta. So words that end in alpha or eta are first declension. And that's the sign that you've got a word that follows this pattern. It ends in an alpha like hora, hour, or graphe, and eta. Second declension words end in omicron, like apostolos or ergon. You say, well, but those don't end in omicron. They end in a sigma and they end in a nu. Well, the sigma and the nu after the omicron are case endings. Okay, not the stem. So now with hora and graphe, there actually was no case ending after the stem. It's just the stem and that's it. So if the word stem ends in alpha or eta, we've got first declension. If the stem ends in omicron, then it's second declension. And those words will follow a certain pattern. And the only other option is if stems end in a consonant. That's something that we're actually going to see in chapter 10. So we've got a little bit of time before we worry about that. And that's third declension, the end in a consonant. And then there's a few words that are indeclinable. Those are words that, whether they're the subject or the object or whatever, they tend not to change very much. Those are often words that are borrowed from another language, like Israel. Guess what language the Greek word what does Israel mean, you think?
No idea.
Yeah. Jordanians? No, it means Israel, right. Israel, okay? Israel. Guess what language that came from in Greek? Where do you think the Greeks got the word Israel from?
Probably English.
English? No. Hebrew. Yeah. Yeah, they got it from Hebrew, obviously. So, and the word Israel doesn't change its form. It doesn't like, a word like hora or apostolos. So there's some words that are indeclinable, and those are often words that are in the language from a foreign language. All right? So those are our 3 declensional patterns. Now, going back to 6.5 here, Greek nouns have gender. They're either masculine, feminine, or neuter. And those genders influence what endings are present. Nouns have only one gender. A noun can't be, more than one gender. All right? Yeah, it's not confusing. This is normal. Normal. Okay?
Whenever, any day we could just decide, okay, today is going to be math.
Yeah, you can't decide. It's what it is. Yep.
I feel like.
Reality, yep.
I feel like this word today should be feminine.
This is so biased. Okay. Anyway, okay. So nouns have one gender. Now remember though, we are talking about grammatical gender, not natural gender here. Okay, for the vast majority of words. It's not something that necessarily reflects reality in the world. It's just the grammar has, whatever. Words in the vocabulary section that end in os, omicron, sigma, are usually masculine. Okay. Words that end in on are usually neuter. And words that end in eta or alpha are mostly feminine. So there are some exceptions, but that's large majority. That's a definite helpful little hint for you. And as we said, gender usually has no connection to meaning, but it influences how the case endings are used. Number also affects case endings. So apostolos is singular, apostle. Apostoloi is plural. And so that sigma at the end specifies this is singular. The iota at the end tells us this is plural. Apostolos, one apostle, Peter. Okay? Apostoloi, the apostles Andrew and Peter. Okay? So there are 4 factors that influence case endings. The stem, the declension, the gender, and the number. So the stem, the declension, the gender, and the number are the factors that tell you what the case endings are going to be. Any comments, questions about that? And by the way, obviously, if this is the first time you've ever heard any of this stuff, you're not going to instantly have it all perfect. Like he's going to mention at the end, he's going to talk about the fog. The fog is okay. All right? Fog is okay. If the fog doesn't dissipate after a while, that's a problem. But being in the fog is okay. I grew up in San Francisco. I like fog. I think fog is great. So we're going to talk now about the nominative case. Okay? So 6.8 here. The nominative case is the first case we're going to review. The nominative case is like the subjective case in English. In English, the subject of the verb is in the subjective case. In Greek, the subject of the verb is in the nominative case. So the subject, we're not going to call it the subjective case, we're going to call it the nominative case, because that's what you do in Greek. Okay? To specify the nominative case, you put nominative case endings on the word. So the word God, theos, if it has the sigma at the end, that's telling you this is nominative singular. So this is the nominative case. God is going to be the subject of whatever God is doing. Contrast that with, say, the accusative case. The accusative case is like the English objective case. That would be the case for the direct object of the verb. So in the word cosmon here, the word world, it has a case ending. The noun at the end is the case ending for the accusative. And that's telling us that this is the direct object. So God loved the world. In that sentence, theos would have the sigma to say this is nominative. The word world, cosmon, would have the nu on it. It's added to the stem cosma, saying this is the object. Now, translators and speakers reverse how they think about these things. So if you're translating the Greek New Testament, you look at the word theos, you recognize the sigma is the nominative case ending, and you conclude, okay, theos is the subject of the verb. But let's say you're speaking Greek. Now you think, I want theos to be the subject of the verb that I'm going to use. So on the stem thea, I'm going to put a sigma on it to show that I'm going to be using this as the nominative. versus some other ending. So if you're going to speak Greek, you think, okay, this needs to be subjective, this needs to be nominative case, theos, versus whatever else. If you're translating, you see it's theos, and you think, okay, that's nominative, that's what the subject is. So you, speaking and translating, you kind of think opposite. You're going from the opposite direction to the same place. And the same thing would be true for the accusative. If you're translating, you see the word kosmon, you say, okay, it has a noun on it, this is a direct object of some verb somewhere. While if you are speaking Greek and you want to make kosmon, make the word kosmos into a direct object, you're going to say, okay, well, kosmos needs to have a noun on it to be the direct object. I'm going to make sure it has a noun. I'm going to say kosmon versus kosmoi or kos whatever. All right? Now, remember, is word order the key to identifying subjects and direct objects in Greek? No. Word order is not the key. In English it is. Subjects come before verbs and the direct objects, come after, except in maybe some very unusual situation. Word order is key in English. In Greek it is not. Do not rely on word order, but rely upon the endings. Let me give you an example here. If I can get my example up. So, we have 4 sentences here. Theos agapa ton kosmon. Agapa ton kosmon theos. Ton kosmon theos agapa. Agapa theos ton kosmon. Now notice the forms of the words are all exactly the same in those 4 sentences. Theos is God. Agapa is the verb. Third person singular present of to love. So he loves. Ton is the article, the. And kosmon is the word world. In that first sentence, theos agapa ton kosmon, if sigma is the case ending specifying the subject, and noun is the case ending identifying the direct object, which word is the subject and which word is the direct object? In theos agapa ton kosmon. Theos is the subject because it has a sigma on it. What's the direct object? Kosmon. Good. Kosmon is the direct object, and agapa is the verb. Don't worry about the verb. So, kosmon is the direct object, not because it comes after the verb, but because it has the noun on it. And ton is the word the, which agrees with the kosmon. How about in the next sentence? Agapa ton kosmon theos. What is the subject in that sentence? It's still theos because of the sigma. It doesn't matter that the word theos is the last word now. Theos is still the subject because it has a sigma on it. What is the direct object? Still kosmon because it still has the noun on it. So agapa ton kosmon theos means exactly the same thing as theos agapa ton kosmon. Maybe there's a different emphasis because of the word order, but in terms of the actual way you translate it exactly the same thing. Agapa ton kosmon theos still means God loves the world, just like theos agapa ton kosmon means God loves the world. How about ton kosmon theos agapa? What's the subject of that sentence? What do you think? Theos. Why? Because the word order, right? No? Okay. Because that's a sigma. Okay. What is the direct object? Still kosmon. Right. Okay. So all 4 of these sentences mean exactly the same thing, even though the word order is different. Okay. And you can tell what they are by the case endings.
We didn't do the 4th sentence.
The 4th sentence. Okay. Agapa theos ton kosmon. What is the? Tell me what they are.
I know. So I think theos is the subject.
You think theos is the subject? Okay. What do you think the direct object is?
Kosmon.
You do? Oh, okay. Okay. Good. What do you think agapa is?
The verb.
It's a verb. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. This is great. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. So all 4 sentences mean the same thing. So just to illustrate, word order can be much more flexible in Greek. All right. And for an English speaker, that can be something that you kind of have to get used to, because we're not used to in English, since we aren't an inflected language, we're an order language more, okay? We put things in certain places to tell what they are. In Greek, it's an inflected language, so they can put things more wherever they feel like it, and the endings tell you what they are. So that's something to keep in mind.
Spanish kind of does the same things a lot.
Spanish is more inflected than English too. Yeah. Spanish is a more inflected language. So, and Italian, gelato is better than ice cream. Just if you go to Rome, you'll see. Gelato is better than ice cream. So, but they don't obey traffic laws over there. So you're more likely to get you have to walk out in the street and then the cars will stop. So you kind of take, and it's sad because they're Catholic, they don't have eternal security. You know what I mean? So you don't know when you're walking out. You know, is this the end or not?
So that's probably why they're used to disobeying.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Yeah, they're used to disobeying, right? So anyway, okay. So word order is not the key, but the endings. The endings are the key. All four of those sentences have identical meaning, and we know what's what by the sigma case ending and that noun at the end. Oh yeah, and here we have theos agapaton kosmon, God loves the world. Same thing, no matter what the word order is. If the Greek word order does make sense in English, it's fine to translate it that way. So in theos agapaton kosmon, the theos is subject. It's fine to translate God loves the world instead of trying to change the word order around. But sometimes you can't follow the Greek word order because, again, in English, we specify where things are based on their location, not the word order. Lexicon. Lexicon is the way you refer to a Greek dictionary. So you don't call it a Greek dictionary, you call it a Greek lexicon. And it means the same thing, right? So you don't refer to the English lexicon, you refer to the English dictionary, but you refer to the Greek lexicon. Okay? It's not like an emoticon. A lexicon are different. Or a leprechaun. This is a lexicon. The leprechaun is if you don't know where the dictionary is, maybe.
At the end of the rainbow, right?
Yeah, you find it at the end of the rainbow. When I was a little kid, actually, I'd heard that there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We were walking in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and they had a sprinkler going. And a sprinkler, because it was one of these ones that turns around, and it had a rainbow that went into this bush. So I thought, I don't know if there's actually a pot of gold, but it's at least worth checking because it's a pot of gold. So I went in the bush to see if there was a pot of gold in there, and there wasn't. Yeah, it's too bad. So there actually isn't a pot of gold.
No, it's just that someone got to it before you did.
But the rainbow should still, even if somebody got it before me, they should have put another one in there because there was still a rainbow. They should have stopped the rainbow.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Funny if it was a rose bush.
that wouldn't have been that funny actually. Yeah. So one other time I did grab a cactus when I was really little, and that wasn't too good. So anyway, so a Greek lexicon is a Greek dictionary. This would be the good time to learn the word thanatos, like death, with all these rose bushes and thorns and. Okay, so the lexical form is the dictionary form. It's the form you look up in the dictionary. Okay, so the lexical form, the form of words, if you look them up in the dictionary, like if you look them up in the back of BBG, where they actually have a very small lexicon with words. Or if you look in something like BDAG, the standard Greek dictionary, Greek lexicon, nouns. For nouns, the lexical form is the nominative singular. So, for example, if you see the word apostoloi in the Greek New Testament, apostoloi is plural. It has that iota at the end. If you look in the Greek lexicon for the word apostoloi, it's not going to be there because that's not the lexical form. You have to know, okay, apostoloi, that iota at the end is telling me it's plural. The nominative form of this declension is apostolos with a sigma. And then you'd look under apostolos, and you'd see the word is apostle. So in the dictionary, in the lexicon, in the Greek dictionary, the nominative singular of the noun is the lexical form. So that's what you have to look up. So review here, that actually is not, that wasn't that bad, but we're the halftime review here already. So what we're learning here is Greek uses different case endings to indicate the case. All right? There's nominative endings, there's accusative endings, there's different things for gender, masculine, feminine, neuter, and for number, singular, plural. We learned that the stem is the basic form of the word that carries its meaning. And you discover the stem by removing the case ending. So you take that ending off, what's left is the stem. Stems ending in alpha or eta are first declension. They follow the pattern, this first pattern. Stems ending in omicron are second declension. They follow a different pattern. And if the word is the subject of a verb, it's in the nominative case. If it's the accusative, and it uses nominative case endings if it's nominative. If it's the direct object, it's an accusative case and uses accusative case endings. And word order does not determine the function, but the case endings do. And if you look in a lexicon, you have to look for the nominative singular. Any comments, questions of what we're covering here in chapter 6 up to this point? Okay. See, the professor is happy there on page 32. I like the professor. I think he's pretty neat. He's a neat little guy there. Okay, let's talk about case endings. Paradigms. Paradigms are patterns. They're tables of the inflected forms of nouns or verbs that serve as a model for other words in the same conjugation or declension. So the paradigm is this table or pattern which gives you all the forms of the noun or the verb or whatever. And that paradigm is a model that all the other words that follow that same pattern will have those same endings or whatever. So paradigm is the pattern table of the inflected forms. BBG, Basic Biblical Greek, reduces the paradigms to memorize. Yay! But that means the ones that are left, you need to learn them. Okay, you must learn them. Because if he didn't reduce it, you got to know this, or you're going to be in trouble. So you must learn the paradigms that are in there, and you must learn them exactly, and you must learn them precisely, or you are in trouble. So take the paradigms very seriously. If they're in here, you've got to learn these paradigms. So he's reduced memorization, but then whatever's left to memorize, you've got to memorize it. That's just how things go. So here we have the paradigm of the case end. This is the endings for the nominative and the accusative singular and plural of the first and second declensions. And you can also just look, of course, in your book at pages 32 and 33 of BBG. If you look down on the bottom of page 32 of BBG, just to make sure you understand what's going on in this chart, from left to right, those where it says noms SG, that means nominative singular. Ac SG doesn't mean ac, it means accusative singular, okay? Nom PL is nominative plural, ac plural is accusative plural. All right. And at the top, 2, 1, and 2 means second declension or first declension. All right. So, and then mask, fem, neut is masculine, feminine, neuter. So, to mask at the top means a second declension masculine case endings. So, what does one fem mean? It's only one woman, right? No, it means first declension feminine endings. Yeah. And to neut means second declension neuter endings, right? So that's what that means there. So the nominative, if we go from left to right, the nominative singular second declension masculine ending is the sigma. There's just a line for that first feminine there at the bottom. That means there is no ending. The first declension feminine nominative singulars don't have an ending. There's nothing, just the stem. The noun there for to neut nominative singular means that the nominative singular case ending for the neuter is noun. Nu. I have to not think Hebrew. Okay, there's a Hebrew letter noun, which is an N, but this is not a noun. This is a nu, because this is the different language, right? Okay, so if I sometimes call that the noun, just overlook that. Okay.
Don't raise our hand and correct you.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean new. Okay, I mean new. Okay, I'm just thinking of the wrong language here, right? Accusative singular. What is the accusative singular second declension masculine case ending? Nu. What is the accusative singular feminine first declension ending? Nu. What is the accusative singular neuter second declension ending? Nu. Yeah. So that's nice. So if you have a nu, you kind of know you've got an accusative singular here. That's kind of a nice thing. It's all new. Okay. The nominative plurals, you can see the ending is iota for the second declension masculine and the first declension feminine. And I'll say something about the accusative in a second. And then for the accusative plural, you've got upsilon sigma for the second declension masculine and sigma for the first declension feminine. Those alphas have lines under them because of what he says in footnote number 5. That means the case ending joins with this final stem vowel. So, for example, and we're talking about this later, but if you have the noun ergon, the stem is erga. But you don't stick that alpha for, like, let's say you have the nominative plural second declension neuter. So you have the stem erga. If you want to say, you don't say erga a with an omicron and an alpha. Instead, the alpha kind of eats up that omicron at the end. And so instead of erga a, it just is erga. So that line underneath means that the alpha ate up the letter before it. Okay, it contracted. So that's those endings there. And then if you attach the stem vowels, it looks like the top of page 33, which is basically the chart we have up right now. So the second declension masculine, remember, the second declension masculine case ending is omicron. So if you've got a second declension masculine word, its stem ends in omicron. So that's why. And then you stick the sigma or the noun or whatever on the omicron. The first declension feminines, remember, can end either eta or alpha, hora or graphe. And then you either stick nothing on them for the nominative singular, or you add the nouns for the accusative, you add the iota and the sigma for the plural nominative accusative. And then we have the neuter endings on, and then the ah. So the reason that on the top here, for the first declension feminine, notice there's two forms in the singular. You have that eta and the alpha, kind of in the middle there. That's because those first declensions can end either in etas or alphas. So that's why there's two there. While for a second declension masculine, it's always ending in omicron. And notice, though, in the plural, it's just alpha. Even if you have a singular first declension feminine word that ends in eta, when it becomes plural, the stem vowel goes from eta to alpha. So it's not eta anymore, now it's alpha. They always become alpha in the plural. You should memorize the paradigms from left to right versus from top to bottom. It's better to memorize from left to right. So In other words, memorize the nominative singular as os, os, on, going left to right versus top to bottom.
We're going to be quizzed over the charts.
Yeah, the charts, question, are we going to be quizzed over the charts? If he gives you a chart like this to memorize, we're going to talk about this, it's very important you learn it. So yes, you need to learn this chart very well. Yeah, because every single time you have a noun, there's thousands of words with these endings on there, so you need to know which is which. If you have a sentence, you've got to know whether it's a subject or a direct object. So yeah, learning the chart, you're going to want to learn the chart. You do need to learn the chart. So, and you must memorize the chart, exactly and precisely. I just want to mention, this isn't key, but some other grammars, you notice at the bottom of page 32, he just has the case endings, and then at the top of page 33, he has the case endings, and then he has the final stem vowel attached on the top of 33. Some other grammars just give you the form with the stem vowel attached and say that's the case ending. It's like, or basically they just give you, not the true case ending, but they just give it to you with a stem vowel attached. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if you were to look in some other Greek grammar, it might just have the top of 33 chart, not have the bottom of 32. Mounce thinks it's helpful to know the true case endings as well as with the other things attached here, and there could very well be something to that. It's a good idea to know them both. When you're memorizing paradigms, it's better, I would encourage you to repeat them out loud or write them out over and over again or something, because the more senses you use, the better. You learn better if you're speaking out loud as well as writing it down and stuff like that. In fact, even in Scripture, the Old Testament at least, the word to meditate, when they would meditate upon, you'll have good success if you're meditating on the word day and night. The Hebrew verb for meditate has the idea of speaking it out loud. So you're memorizing, you're thinking about this, you're talking out loud. So something to keep in mind.
So it's okay to talk to yourself?
It is okay to talk to yourself, yeah. It is. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think it is. And do I really think that? I do. Yeah. So, anyway, second declension neuter, a few patterns here to point out. Second declension nominative, neuter nominative singular and accusative singular are always identical. And you can see that they're identical. Okay, on and on. The same is true for the nominative plural and the accusative plural of neuters. They're always the same. So that saves you a little, memory work now. So that's a blessing. They're the same. It's always on, and it's always ah. They're always the same. Say, well, but then how can I tell which is which? How can I tell which is the object and which is the subject? The vast majority of the time, context makes it clear, and you don't really need to wonder which is which. The context gives you the answer. Now, let's say you are looking at a noun and the final letter is a sigma. What could it be? What form could it be if the final letter is a sigma? Okay, yeah, it could be an accusative plural if you've got an us at the end. If it's not just a sigma, but it's got this in front of it too, yeah, that you're going to be looking at accusative plural. What else could it be if it has a sigma at the end? Yeah, it could be second declension masculine singular. If you've got a sigma and then whatever, an omicron in front of it, yeah, you're going to be looking at second declension masculine nominative singular. What else? Is there anything else it could be?
First declension, feminine, accusative, plural.
Good. First declension, feminine, accusative, plural. If it has an alpha in front of it. Okay? So good. So those are, how you can tell. Okay. This is what it ends up looking like in a real life with real, complete words here. So this column is, of course, it is the second declension masculine, nominative, accusative, singulars, nominative, accusative, plurals. Those two in the middle are our first declension feminines. And the reason there's two columns is because the first declension feminines can end either an eta or an alpha. So you've got two. And then the final one over there is our neuters, second declension neuters. So again, really, if you memorize one of these charts, it shouldn't be that hard to have the other ones down. But it would be a good idea just to have it down in your head as well, just what it looks like with an actual word. So notice what can give you trouble. The nu and the alpha occur in several places. So just kind of watch out for those nus and the alphas. And we mentioned this already, but the graphe and the hora. Notice in the singular, the first declension feminines can either end in that eta, like graphe, or they can end in the alpha, like hora. But in the plural, notice the plural isn't graphe with a eta iota, it's graphi with an alpha iota. It's not, graphes or something, it's graphos. So in the plurals, even if the first declension has an eta at the end, it switches over to an alpha. So they all have that alpha when they become plural.
Will he use these same words through all paradigms in the textbook, at least for nouns?
Yeah, the question is, will he use the same verbs in all the paradigms? Yeah, if these are pretty standard words that, you can memorize the paradigm. Make logos. You can definitely make logos your second declension, because there's going to be other forms too. We're going to learn like accusative and genitive and blah blah. It's fine. Definitely, you're going to be all right making logos your word for the first declension. Ergon your word for the neuter. That's going to be not a problem. Yeah, that's going to be just fine. And I would do that. I probably would just keep one word and make that your word. So you can think of the eta and the alpha as related vowels, and consider the two words there one paradigm to learn. Now, if we're going to be parsing is to break a word into its parts and to say what you know about it. That's what it means to parse it. Break it into its parts and you say what you know about it. For nouns, that would mean 5 things: case, number, gender, lexical form, and inflected meaning. Those are the 5 things that we know when we need to state if we parse a word. So here we have the word logos. Now, what are the 5 things here? Well, first, what is, if you think about that chart or you look in the book, that us ending, upsilon sigma, what is the case for this? Good, it's accusative plural because it has an us. Good, so this is accusative plural. And so that's, the case is accusative, the number is plural. Since it's second, it's a masculine, so the gender is masculine. The lexical form, I don't think he gives it, the lexical form is logos u ha. That's the lexical form. If you look in BDAG, the standard Greek lexicon, Bauer, Denker, Gingrich, or if you look in the back of Mounce, where he has a little small lexicon, this is the form that would be in the lexicon. So the lexical form is logos u ha. You don't know what the u is yet, but you want to learn that as part of it. And the ha is the article, the Greek article. The u tells you what declension is involved. If it's an os u, that's saying this is second declension. So by sticking the u on there, you're going to know what the u is a little bit later, but this is a second declension word. That's what that's telling you. And then the ha is telling you it's masculine. If it was he, it would be feminine. If it was ta, it would be neuter. We're going to learn the forms of the article in just a little bit later here. So that's the lexical form, logos u ha. The inflected meaning is the meaning of the word as an accusative plural. So logus is plural, so the inflected meaning would be words. If it was singular, it would be word. Okay? So for logus, the 5 things we know are its case is accusative, its number is plural, its gender is masculine, its lexical form is logos, uha, and the inflected meaning is words. Now, maybe you don't know the lexical form yet because I think it's in this lesson's vocabulary. Maybe was logos in the vocabulary already? It was? Okay. So, yeah, so that's the lexical form, and maybe you do, hopefully you do know it already then. Let's go to another word here. Erga. Erga means work. So, what is the case of erga? Of course, it kind of helps that it's actually the example in the paradigm, right? So, what's the case for erga?
Nominative or accusative plural.
Oh yeah, okay. So, is this nominative plural or is it accusative plural? Either. Yeah, good. So, now in a sentence, the specific word is going to be one or the other, right? Because you're going to see whether it's the subject of a verb or the object or whatever. But if you're just parsing this word on its own, this is a word that's floating in outer space, all right? You would parse this as nominative or accusative plural. Okay? So you would say erga is nominative or accusative plural neuter. All right? And the lexical form is ergon, meaning work. So you would say this is the nominative or accusative plural neuter from ergon, meaning work. And since this is plural, the inflected meaning would be works. All right? So that's how you parse. And those are some examples there. I think he gives you on 6.16, he gives you the order that he says it, the case, then the number, then the gender. Obviously, if you said the number first or something like that, it's not like you're wrong, okay? But it's just good to kind of keep a pattern and just always do it the same way. So doing it that way, in that order, case, then the number, then the gender, then the lexical or inflected meaning is just a good way to do it. So just follow that pattern. So, it's important that with neuter nouns, where this one could be either nominative or accusative, that you parse that you get used to thinking of this form as nominative/accusative. Because if you don't get used to thinking of this as nominative/accusative, you only think, well, nominative for erga, okay? Well, then, if in a sentence it's actually accusative, and you think it's nominative, and you don't remember that it could be accusative instead, and you're thinking this is the subject of a verb, but that just doesn't make any sense, it can kind of throw you off. So think of the form as nominative/accusative, and you're less likely to make a mistake. All right, we have 3 noun rules here, 6.18. You need to memorize these noun rules exactly. Say, I don't like memorizing noun rules. Well, memorizing the noun rule makes it so you have to memorize a lot less other stuff. So it's good. Memorizing a noun rule is good. It means less memory. What are we remembering again? Anyway, so 3 noun rules. This is the first noun rule. All right. Stems ending in alpha or eta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second. And consonantal stems are in the third. Let's all say this together. Stems ending in alpha or eta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second. And consonantal stems are in the third. Okay, good. Second noun rule. The ergon is not part of the noun rule. The noun rule is just the text. It's the part in blue in your book. Every neuter word, I'll say it and then you say it with me after I say it. Every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and accusative. Let's say it together. Every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and accusative. So, for example, ergon here could either be nominative or accusative because it has a noun, a new at the end. Not a noon, wrong way. New, it has a new at the end. Okay. Third noun rule. Almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. Say it together. Almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. So erga here is neuter, ends in alpha. It could either be nominative plural or accusative plural. Now notice number 2, rule number 2 is every, number 3 is almost all. So number 2 has no exceptions. Number 3 does have some exceptions, but very few. All right? So 2 is always true, 3 is almost always true. That's why it says almost all, and number 2 says every. All right? And in the appendix, page 346 of the book, you've got all 8 rules, but we're only learning these 3 at this point, and that's okay. You need to learn these rules exactly. Learning these rules exactly will save you a lot of memorization. And actually, just to mention something about memorization, 21st century culture does a lot less memorization than in past times. If you were living in the 1st century and getting a classical education in Greece, you probably would memorize the whole Iliad, okay? Which is a lot longer than the New Testament, okay? You could easily have people memorize the whole New Testament, okay? Christians would. You would have Jews that would memorize the Torah, perfect. Apparently, there were even some that would memorize the whole Talmud, which is big. Okay, yeah. So we do a lot less memorization, but we can do it. You still have the same, God still gave you that brain. There is a brain in your head. Right? You can memorize. You'll be all right. You've used it before at least once, the brain. So, anyway, there was 3 noun rules. Learn these rules exactly. All right. Yes.
When talking about a brain, if someone ever says they want to give you a piece of their mind, you say, "Are you sure you can afford that?"
A piece of your mind. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's true. Yeah. You don't want to give if somebody gives you a piece of his mind.
Some people can't afford to give up money.
No, you're right. Yeah. Some people can't afford to give up money. That's true. It's true. Yeah. And maybe they gave other people and there's nothing left. You have to wonder sometimes. Perhaps for the majority of the population, they're giving people pieces of their minds and there's nothing left. All they can do now is just look at Facebook and believe whatever it says, right? Yeah, just believe whatever Google says. Whatever Siri says is true. All right? And Wikipedia, that's true for sure, whatever it says. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's talk about the article. Remember, the article is generally translated as the. The. Greek has no indefinite article. There's no specific word that means a or an. All right? There's the word the, no specific indefinite article. There's ways to express indefiniteness in Greek, but there's no specific indefinite article. Just the. And since there is only one, and since the Greeks do not always use the article the same way we do in English, it's worthwhile to just say the article instead of saying the definite article. When you're talking about the Greek article, you can just call it the article. The article is your friend. Memorize the article, and you will memorize the article. You will definitely memorize the article. Will get you out of a lot of trouble. It helps you a lot memorizing the article. Memorizing the forms helps because the article has a lot of similarities with the nouns, and also helps because the article agrees in case number and gender with the word it modifies. So if you have here ha logos, okay, ha logos, or you have hoi logoi. Hoi logoi. That's too big of a thing on the oi. Okay, hoi logoi. Ha logos, hoi logoi. Ha is the masculine singular nominative article. And logos has an os, masculine singular nominative. Hoi hoi is the plural, okay, nominative plural. Logoi here, nominative plural. All right. So the article will always agree with what it's modifying. And that can help you. Let's say you can't tell what the noun is. You aren't sure what the form is, but it's got an article in front of it. Well, the article will tell you what the other word is. So that's just, that's kind of nice. The article, because the article will always agree in case, number, and gender with the word that it's modifying. So if you are having trouble with a word, you can just use the article kind of as a crutch, if it has an article, okay, to figure out what the parsing is for the noun. So it's your friend, because it agrees in case, number, and gender. Here are the forms of the article. How common in English is the word the? You use the word the a lot? Yeah, you sure do, right? It happens lots and lots. And so just like in Greek, okay, there's lots and lots of articles. Just like in English there are. So memorizing the article is a very, very, very good idea because it's going to be there so much. So here are the forms of the article. Now, with the article, don't worry about stems and case endings. Just memorize the article as a unit. All right? So these are the nominative forms of the article. Nominative singular masculine, feminine, neuter. Accusative singular masculine, feminine, neuter. Nominative plural, masculine, feminine, neuter. And accusative plural, masculine, feminine, neuter. All right? And you must memorize the forms of the article and memorize them exactly. That's very important. The feminine article follows the first declension, and the masculine and neuter follow the second declension, like the nouns. The forms of the article either begins with a rough breath mark, like ha or hey, or with a tau, like ta or tan. All right? So it either begins with a rough breath mark or with a ta. And the article of the word doesn't care about the declension of the word it's modifying. So hey will modify a feminine noun whether the feminine noun is first or second declension. So the article will always go with the gender of the word that it's with. So that makes it consistent, easy to learn, and important. There's some more hints at the bottom of page 36, and those can help you. The Greek article does not change by declension of the word it modifies. It only changes based on case. So the article is the same whether or not we're speaking about a first, second, or third declension word. Or even one of those words that doesn't decline, those indeclinable words, the article will be whatever it actually is in the sentence. So let's say you had, Israel, okay? If it had the accusative singular article in front of it, then you know it's accusative singular. If it had the nominative singular article in front of it, you know it's nominative singular, or whatever. All right? The lexical form of the article, if you wanted to look up the article in the lexicon, it's going to be ha. The nominative singular is is kind of always the lexical form. And knowing the forms of the article is key to recognizing the forms of nouns in Greek. So learning the article well will make it much easier for you to learn nouns. So it is very good to learn the article well. And as we already mentioned, if you're unsure about a noun, if the noun has an article preceding it, you can look at the article and figure out the declension of the noun. You can use it kind of as a crutch. So you definitely want to learn the forms of the article well. Let's talk translation here. It helps you in translating a sentence. The sentence isn't just a collection of unrelated words. Okay, if you split the sentence into parts, the subject and its modifiers, and the predicate with its, the verb with its modifiers. That helps you if you can kind of divide the sentence into parts like that. And then sometimes you can also separate out as you get sentences that are bigger. You can separate out the direct object with its modifiers. So here for a short sentence, ha theos sose psukos. Theos is the subject. It's modified with the article ha, the. So the God here. Sose is third singular, masculine singular, sozo, saves. That's the predicate there, and then the verb. And then psukos is the direct object, which means souls. So God saves souls there. So you can split, divide the sentence up that way. If there's an article you keep it with, it's noun, ha theos. And as sentence structure becomes more complicated, breaking it up like this will be helpful to you. With the article, in terms of translating the article, the Greek article is generally translated the. Okay, and the rule is to translate according to the presence or absence of the article. If it's got an article, then you can generally translate it as the. If there is no article, don't put a the in. Sometimes it makes sense to put an a in or an and, but don't put in the if there's no article as a rule. However, there are two important differences. Greek, well, there's a number of differences actually, but Greek does not always use the article the same way that we do. They use it in certain places where we wouldn't use it, and they don't use it in certain places that we do use it. All right. Two differences to be aware of at this point are names. Greek often uses the article before a proper name. So, for example, you had Peter. If you have the name Peter, in Greek you would say the Peter. Okay. Abraham would have the article, ha Abraham. But you don't need to translate that, the Peter, the Abraham. You could just translate it Peter, Abraham, because we don't use the article before names. But Greek, they do. That's just what they do. That isn't what we do. It's okay. Also with abstract nouns, words like good or truth, Greek tends to have the article before abstract nouns. So they would tend to say this, that is the good. Well, we would tend to say that is good. They would tend to say that is the truth, while we might just say that is truth, something like that. So Greek tends to use the article with abstract nouns more than we do in English. Then post-positive words are words that cannot be the first word in a Greek sentence or clause. So post-positive words are usually little words, like but, death. And they're not the first word in a Greek sentence. They're usually the second, sometimes they're the third or fourth, but they're never the first word. That's why they're called post-positive. But in English, they're very likely to be the first word. So you might translate but as the first word of a sentence, but in Greek, the de is the second word. Before we give you the summary here, just notice the professor. BBG has a little bit of how to speak. We have more in the book that we're going to be getting into a little bit later, the Speak Koine Greek conversational phrase book here. But he tells you on page 36, 37 how to say hello. The formal way to say hello is kairein, which is I wish you to be happy. That's the formal way to say it. And you can see some references there where you see this as a greeting. If you're saying hello to a friend, more informal, you'd say kaira. Okay, King James translated is all like hail. So I'll be formal to greet you all. Kairein. You can greet me. Do you say kaira or kairein? Or be formal right now? Kairein. See, like page 36. Right. Now, if you're greeting your friend, and it's more informal, kaira. And now you can greet me more informally. Kaira. Okay, good. So there. A little bit, something just slightly lighter in this long chapter. You've done agathos, good, with this chapter. I would say tov ma'od, but that's the wrong language. That means good job, very good in Hebrew. Summary here. You are now entering the fog. Yes. Okay. Language takes a while to sink in, which is why being consistent, doing those, spending that time every day or 6 days out of 7 at least, is important. All right. That's just how language is. It's not necessarily like math. You do the math problem, there you've got it. Language takes a while to sink in. It's okay to be in the fog when you're learning something new. The fog is fine. Okay, it's all right. The fog will move with you, but it will dissipate behind you. So as you learn chapter 7, well then chapter 7 will be in the fog. Chapter 6, the fog usually takes about 2 chapters to dissipate. So chapter 7 will be in the fog. Chapter 6 will be a little bit foggy, but chapter 5 will be easy. Okay, then you move to chapter 8. Now chapter 8 will be in the fog. Chapter 7, and chapter 6 should be clear by the time you're in chapter 8. So the fog moves with you, okay, but it dissipates behind you. Now, if you're in chapter 10 and chapter 6 is still foggy, that's not good, okay? Then that's too much fog, all right? So, but as you keep learning new things, the fog will continue to be there, and that's fine, all right? There's the guy in the fog, okay? But it does dissipate. So you can't see him too well because he's in the fog, right? You can just see his eyes. So scotia, darkness. So that's fine. It takes about 2 chapters to dissipate. And so it's fine if you're a little bit foggy. All right. So just to mention that. And then we have the other things here in the summary. Greek uses case endings to show the noun's function. Different case endings are used to designate case, nominative or accusative, number, singular and plural, and gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter. The stem of a noun is what is left after removing the case ending. And has that little asterisk in front of it if you're putting it separately. Stem carries the basic meaning of the word. The subject of a verb uses nominative case endings, and the direct object uses accusative case endings. And you need to memorize the paradigm, the pattern, of the case endings and the article. You need to memorize that. You just got to do it. The article agrees with the noun it modifies in case, number, and gender. Chart here. It agrees with the noun it modifies in case, number, and gender. And you should learn the endings by themselves, and then learn the full paradigm with article, noun, stem, and case endings. So here is, a paradigm. This has the vowel, stem, vowel on it as well, the chart. But you can see the chart with the case endings on its own there, page 38, and then with the actual words as well. Ha, logos, he, graphe, and so on. Here is the actual forms of the article. Let's actually say these right now, the forms of the article. We'll say them across because it's good to learn them across. Okay? No, we're going to say what's on the book. We're not saying the one in the book right now. We're saying the one here on the chart. So let's say this: ha, he, ta, ton, tain, ta, hoi, hi, ta, tus, tas, ta. Let's do it again. Ha, he, ta, ton, tain, ta, hoi, hi, ta, tus, tas, ta. This is actually useful too. If you ever decide to reject biblical cessationism for charismaticism, this can help you learn to speak in tongues. You just go, ha, he, ta, tan, ta, hoi, hi, ta, tus, tas, ta, and just say that over and over again, and put your hand on somebody. And you'll see if somebody will translate. He's saying whatever. You say, no, I'm not. I'm saying the forms of the Greek article. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying that if you do, this is the way you can help other people learn. So, because it's not what you're doing isn't really miraculous anyway, right? So just yeah. But you're going to say here, just saying the. So, okay. Then we have the first 3 noun. We have the first 3 noun rules. The article agrees in case, number, and gender with the word it modifies. And we have the first 3 noun rules there. Let's say them again at the bottom of page 38. Stems ending in alpha or eta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second. And consonantal stems are in the third. The declension of a noun affects only its form, not its meaning. 2. Every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and accusative. And the third noun rule is almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. And then we reviewed translation procedure. We saw that you split a sentence into parts, the subject and its modifiers, and the predicate, the verb with its modifiers. The article you translate it generally as the, but you don't stick in the if the article is not there. And we saw a few other things about names, which typically get the article in Greek. Abstract nouns do as well. And post-positive words can't be the first word in a sentence in Greek, while they often are in English. And then we saw how we're entering the fog, but the fog tends to dissipate. And so those are the things that we reviewed. So that's the end of the chapter. Good job in getting through all that fantastic information about the language in which God gave His Word. Let's talk about the vocabulary. So here, the first vocabulary word is agape. I'll say it and then you say it with me, okay? Agape, agapes, he. Agape, agapes, he. Allos, ale, allo. Allos, ale, allo. And as you can see those endings, remember, you say the whole word with that instead of the os at the end. Autos, we need to say what these mean. Agape say means love. Allos, aon is other or another. Autos, on. So let's say that. Autos, a. That's in the singular, he, she, or it. And in the plural, they or them. Basileia, basileas, he. Basileia, basileas, he. Kingdom. De. But or and. It's post-positive, and it's sometimes written just with a delta when it's followed by a word beginning with a vowel. En means in, on, or among. The most common preposition in the Greek New Testament, appearing 2,752 times. Ergon, ergu, ta. Ergon, ergu, ta. Work, deed, or action. Kairos, kairu, ha. Kairos, kairu, ha. Appointed time or season. So time or appointed time. Noon. Not the middle of the day, right? But it's as an adverb, it means now, or as a noun, the present. So noon. Ha, he, ta. Ha, he, ta. The. You got that? You just learned 19,867 words in the New Testament. Now that is pretty good. 4 letters, 19,687 words. Wow. Haughty. That, since, or because. And it can introduce either indirect or direct discourse. So in the New Testament, you won't see quote marks, but both direct discourse, so kind of like quotation marks, are introduced by haughty, or indirect discourse. He said that, blah, blah, blah. Oo, or ook, or ook. Oo, ook, ook. Not. Oo is used when the following word begins with a consonant, oo dunatai. Ook when the next word begins with a vowel and a smooth breathing, ook ealthon. While ook is used when the next word begins with a vowel and a rough breathing, ook humes, and just means not. And it usually precedes the word that it modifies. Hora, horos, he. Hora, horos, he. Hour, occasion, or moment. Good, and that's the vocabulary. So, you can see here, just with the vocabulary you've learned up to this point, which is 39 words you will have learned, you've covered 33% of all the words in the Greek New Testament already. Now that is pretty good. And 67% is left there. So that should be an encouragement to you. And of course, you're going to go out and learn everything in this chapter and do a good job with that, and that'll be fantastic. Any comments, questions? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and sing the alphabet song one more time here. That's always a good thing to do. Ooh, where did I put my alphabet song? I just had it. Here we are. Okay, alphabet song. Ready? Dun da 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 dun da da dun dum da dum ba dum ba dum. Let's stand up. Let's sing the alphabet song. All right, here we go. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, psi, omega. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, psi, omega. Good job. And we are going to end by saying 2 Corinthians 13:14, wonderful Trinitarian benediction. In English, it's the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Ghost be with you all. Amen. Let's say that. I'll say it to you in Greek, and then we'll both say it together, and then that'll be the end. He charis tu kuriou Jesu Christou kai he agape tu theou kai he koinonia tu hagiou pneumatos meta ponton humon. Amen. Let's say that together. He charis tu kuriou Jesu Christou kai he agape tu theou kai he koinonia tu hagiou pneumatos meta ponton humon. Amen. Amen. You are dismissed.